Gonna jump, push it to the limit, finish line dead ahead. Stretching, stretching out the gap, gap, gap. Hammer it out, be a champion, hammer it out. Leaning on the bend, picking up the pail and the thrill of the chase. Whoa, whoa. Power at the peak, a solitary stare, the most prominent player. Whoa, whoa. Gonna jump, hit, push it to the limit, finish line dead ahead. Stretching, stretching out the gap, gap, gap. Hammer it out, be a champion, hammer it out. Hammer it out, be a champion, hammer it out. Hammer it out.
Most Americans think that bicycle racing is new to the United States. In fact, bicycle racing was once one of the most popular sporting events in America. In these early days of the sport, American cyclists were among the best and highest paid athletes in the world, and the bike races themselves were a regular event, filling special cycling stadiums with the thunder of wheels on the wooden tracks. The environment was more like a prize fight than anything else. But, like other American passions, it ended. In the late 60s, there were signs of a revival. Without sponsorship, without recognition, and always against the odds, U.S. riders were distinguishing themselves. Jim Okowitz, himself a member of 2 Olympic squads, dared to think big. Always an outstanding team rider, Okowitz was dreaming of another sort of team, a team of world-class Americans strong enough to win at the Olympic and pro levels. By 1984, the 7-Eleven team had made an unprecedented mark on American cycling. They just wouldn't stop winning, and the legacy continues today. This program is full of useful information. Study carefully the sections which most directly apply to your cycling needs. Basic bike handling skills are crucial at every level of cycling. Good bike handling is the result of having confidence and control. Case in point, national pro champion Eric Heiden. Listen to his thoughts on bike handling skills.
Strong bike handling skills enable an individual to ride in a pack where bikes are just inches apart. Contrary to popular opinion, cycling is very often a contact sport. This contact often makes inexperienced riders nervous, but riding close is not dangerous when you know what you're doing. The rider in the blue jersey is the problem here. He's aggressive without being in control and has developed some very bad habits. He rides stiff and his moves are abrupt. He also overreacts and goes to the brakes too fast.
He is known as a squirrel, and this is what you do not want to be. A squirrel usually only thinks about being strong and doesn't develop his skills. You can't ride close to him, and riding close is what efficient riding and racing is all about. Dangerous riders like this will get forced to the rear by better riders. It's self-protection. Riders like this cause crashes, and it's never wise to ride behind a squirrely rider.
In Europe, the pros ride even closer together. When we first went there to race, we found that we were strong enough to be competitive and win, but we weren't used to riding so close. Only a couple of the 7-Eleven riders were experienced enough to be allowed up front, but we quickly learned, and so can anybody.
Develop an awareness of what's happening around you. Anticipate what may come next. Safety depends on these skills. Make it a habit to look far up the road and make any changes in direction early. Being able to ride a straight, controlled line at any speed is the first step for all riders. The key is body control. Steer mostly with your body, not the bars. Use slight hip and body adjustments to maintain a straight line. Being able to ride a controlled line while looking over your shoulder is an important safety consideration. Having a shoulder to lean on is one safe way to help keep you under control.
Here's something I do with my junior team riders to improve balance and bike handling skill. Get used to this and you won't be scared to ride in a tight group. Bumping can be a game instead of a threat. The main idea is not to bump your handlebars or you lose your ability to steer. If you lean into the bump with your shoulder, you can always bounce away.
Learn how to react when the bike gets unstable. Everyone needs this kind of control.
Confidence and control really go hand in hand. When you have control, the confidence will follow.
Good braking is an essential skill. There comes a time when you need 100% stopping power, and you have to know how to use it. Canadian Alex Stita, an Olympian and Tour de France stage winner, discusses good braking.
You can operate the brakes from the tops of the brake hoods, which is adequate for most situations. Or go to the drops, which gives you maximum braking power, stabilizes you on the bike, and also lowers your center of gravity. Notice the way Eric goes on and off the brakes entering the turns. You brake before the turn, hitting both brakes at once. On long descents, feather the brakes. Use them in short bursts and release them so the brake pads don't heat up.
In a panic situation, first go to the drops. Second, apply both brakes while moving your weight back over the rear wheel. This equalizes braking force and maintains traction. Third, keep the front wheel straight and don't lock up the brakes. Technique can save your life in a situation like this. Remember to go to your drops immediately in emergency situations. Many riders never learn to take a corner well, but it's not a hard skill to obtain. Anyone can find himself going into a corner too fast, but if you have the skills, you can avoid the spills. Cornering involves a sequence of decisions that you can make routine. Always brake before the corner, then follow your path or line at a reasonable speed. If it's a sharp turn, stop pedaling. A shallow turn can often be pedaled through. Riders talk about taking a good or bad line through a corner. A good one gets you through safe and fast. Enter from the outside and exit wide. Guide the bike with your body. Even in most turns, the handlebars don't move much. The more you lean, the more you'll turn. Adjust your line for banking and road hazards as needed. Especially beneficial for triathletes, cutting corners tight cuts the distance and time you travel. Don't try this against oncoming traffic, but on a closed course you can save meters on every turn. Saving 2 or 3 seconds on each of 20 or 30 turns can easily be the margin of victory.
You don't want to blast through every corner, but there's no reason not to learn how.
This is an exercise one of my earlier coaches had me do to teach fast and safe cornering in a controlled situation. Find a parking lot or some deserted streets which will enable you to make a series of 4 right-handed turns. Clear visibility is a must. As you cut the corner faster and tighter, you'll begin to feel the physics of the situation. If you ride smoothly, you'll find that the threshold of losing it isn't nearly as close as you thought. You'll sense the little adjustments you need to make. When you feel you're losing it, you got to dig in. Press harder with your outside leg and really commit yourself to the maneuver. Don't panic. Bailing out halfway through the turn is usually the worst mistake.
When you're blasting through a corner and you think you're going to lose it, the biggest thing is you got to hang on and believe in yourself, because as soon as you give up, you're going to fall down.
Try Ron's exercise twice a month to improve your cornering technique. Find some deserted streets with clear visibility, such as a new housing development or an industrial park on a weekend, where you can make a series of unobstructed turns.
When riding in a field of riders, your line and even your cornering form will be dictated by riders around you. Only the riders at the front get to ride the good line. That's why small breakaways can often outrun a pack. They can take the ideal line and pick up those valuable seconds. Drafting. Riding in the draft or slipstream of another rider is an essential skill for any bike rider. At moderate speeds, wind resistance is about 75% of your energy drain. At race speeds, it's about 90%. Because drafting can cut wind resistance by as much as a third, it is one of the most crucial tactical devices in cycling. These riders are drafting in a sophisticated way. They share the effort by taking turns or pulls at the front. By cooperating closely, they become more efficient. This formation is a pace line. A single rider works anywhere from 20 to 35% harder. Reduced wind resistance lets weaker riders stay with stronger ones, enabling families and spouses to exercise together. Among more equal riders, working together makes a ride more interesting by adding a mental challenge. You move faster and further without extra effort.
The first step in drafting is to sense the wind direction. Watch for its effect on leaves, grass, and things blowing across the road. Wind from the front or back puts you in a straight pace line. Crosswinds put you in an echelon. Go into whatever formation makes sense. Listen to the wind. The sound will change when you've hit the sweet spot.
Some of the general rules for drafting are: 1. Don't apply the brakes suddenly. This could knock down the riders who are following. 2. When you lead the group, don't accelerate too quickly. If you split the group in two pieces, the work cannot be shared. 3. Don't lead too long. If you drop behind and get rest when you need it, you will be able to lead faster each time and keep going farther. 4. Communicate with those around you. And most importantly, number 5, stay alert. Don't lead your group through a chuck hole. And when you follow, look ahead so you can see potential accidents before they happen.
When you're drafting in an echelon, one of the most important aspects is to subdue your ego. When a group of riders works as a unit, their energy can be more than the sum of its parts. That's what you're looking for.
Everyone being in the same or compatible gears promotes good rhythm and cooperation. Good drafting is critical to anyone who wants to race. Sharing the load has to be worked out quickly, and refusing to pull your weight does not make you popular. Drafting smoothly, or purposely refusing to do so, is the most dynamic feature of breakaway groups. If there's anything in the road, it's up to the leader to alert the others. Drop the arm that's on the same side as the pothole or other problem, and make sure that the other riders you're with do the same. Amateurs in a pace line are usually 8 to 12 inches apart. The pros, only a few inches.
Bumping the rear wheel of the rider in front of you is very dangerous. The rider behind usually crashes unless he has exceptional skill. The actual crash is caused by leaning over the wheel. If you cannot avoid striking the wheel, you must try to bounce away. Mastering this technique can literally save your skin, but don't try it at high speed.
The tighter the echelon, the more efficient. If you don't act quickly, you'll be left to fight the wind all alone. It's not unusual to find yourself working closely with your worst opponent to chase down a mutual enemy. Road racing is made up of attacks, periods of neutrality, and working alliances. If you get a feel for this, you can win races, and that makes all your hard work worthwhile.
First big one, isn't it? Yeah, it's the very first big one. I'm real happy. I mean, I was trying to be aggressive and, and work for my team, 7-Eleven. And, I just ended up in the winning break. It was great.
It is Scott McKinley, the first-year senior.
Be a champion, hammer it out. Hammer it out.
Coaches and riders are always talking about position, how the rider fits the bike. Good position is a compromise between aerodynamics, getting power to the pedals, and comfort. It lets you be not only streamlined and powerful, but smooth and relaxed.
Getting that correct positioning on the bike is really the first step in reaching peak performance. Bad position is awkward and often becomes painful over the miles. Position is crucial because each little failure of alignment is magnified into thousands of pedal strokes.
Three-time Olympian Leonard Harvey Nitz has been at this for years. He's developed a silky smooth riding style. Harvey is low and compact, keeping his back flat and his chest out of the wind. While in this position, he keeps his abdominal muscles relaxed to aid breathing. Notice his elbows slightly bent and loose, and his relaxed shoulders. This relaxed upper body makes breathing easier and improves bike handling. When bent, the arms act as shock absorbers against the jarring effect of the road. The grip is relaxed but firm. Hand positions can be changed frequently to reduce stress. Your knees should stay in, like Harvey's, almost grazing the top tube with every pedal stroke. Coaches like Jim Akowitz work closely with a rider to get their best position on the bike.
Good cycling position doesn't come naturally, just as you don't mistake a novice jogger for Mary Decker or see too many first-year snow skiers displaying perfect form on the slopes. Cyclists must learn to work at their position and form. The goal is to have a position that is both aerodynamic and comfortable.
The first thing is to be sure the frame fits. If you can get genuinely qualified advice, take it. For people of average size and proportion, vertical frame size, expressed as the length of the seat tube, can be figured by subtracting 10.5 inches from the crotch to floor inseam. Horizontal size, figured by the length of the top tube, is adjusted by changing stem length. This method, like any, is approximate, but close enough for most riders. Another method of selecting frame size is to stand over the bicycle and lift the front tire. 1 to 3 inches of clearance is what you're looking for. Set the saddle flat and level in the middle of its backward-forward travel. A micro-adjust seat post is almost mandatory. Set the up-down adjustment so that your heels hang no more than an inch above the pedal at the bottom of the stroke, or just a bit higher if you have long feet. Look for just a slight bend in the knee. Set backward-forward seat adjustment so the center of your knee falls directly over the pedal axle with the pedal at the 3 o'clock position. The center of your knee is the soft spot located either side of your kneecap. Use the outside of the knee to measure. Use a stem length that, when seated comfortably and with hands in the drops, obscures your view of the front axle with the handlebar. Beginners can set the stem height a little lower than the height of the saddle, but the idea is to gradually lower it as your body adjusts. Don't adjust it too fast. You're always working towards a low aerodynamic position that is comfortable. Bars vary in size and relate to shoulder width. Smaller riders, and most women, prefer narrow bars of 38 to 40 centimeters. Big riders are better off with a 42 or 44 centimeter width. Set bars and position brakes as shown. Cleats are highly recommended. Whether you use cleats or not, position the ball of your foot directly over the pedal axle. Point your feet straight forward at first, then adjust for the natural direction of your foot. You must not twist the knee. Don't ignore pain. You can seriously injure your knees if cleats are set wrong. Take the adjustment tool along on your rides. Select a range of gearing on a freewheel that is correct for your ability and the terrain in which you ride. More gearing possibilities are available by changing the chain rings. Further along, you may want to change your crank length. Crank length relates to size, more specifically to leg length. While 170 millimeter cranks are standard, longer and shorter cranks have special applications. After getting your bike set up, concentrate on how your body feels during and after a ride. When you're riding 3 or 4 days a week, your position will change. Get your body as aerodynamic as possible without restricting your breathing. Make small adjustments, 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch, and keep track of the original settings, which are easy to lose. You may want to be a bit more forward and higher, a position associated with criterium racing. Or you may want to put your seat back and slightly lower, like most road racers do. This is a good adjustment if you ride plenty of hills or take extra long training rides. This is something you work out over a period of time.
Some have said that good pedaling is making perfect little circles with your feet. To do it, you have to work on the pedal stroke. The obvious part is the downstroke, section 1. But with toe clips and cleats, you can do a lot more. Coming around the bottom of the stroke, you're beginning a kind of clawing motion, pulling the pedal back, or as a teammate put it, like scraping dirt off the sole of your shoe. You carry that through, lifting the foot on the upstroke. Try to be smooth coming over the top and entering the downstroke, where you get your power. The idea is to extend this fat part of the stroke.
Pedaling technique is another area where style plays a major role. Some ride with feet flat, some point their toes more, others will lead more with their heels, which is called ankling. If you get cramps in your legs, especially in your calves, change your pedaling technique. Cadence is pedaling speed. 90 to 100 RPM is often recommended, but in practice this is a bit high for many riders. 85 to 90 RPM, or 1.5 pedal strokes per second, is fast enough for most roadies. You will notice that as your stroke gets smoother, you will have less difficulty using higher pedal cadences. Use of rollers can help achieve a smooth pedal style.
Gonna jump, push it to the limit, finish line dead ahead. Stretching out the gap. Hammer it out, be a champion, hammer it out.
During the winter, I would say I cut my mileage in half, but I add a lot of other sports like hiking, swimming, and running. During the early season, that would be the time to start putting on your miles and then getting closer to the races.
About 100 to 200 miles a week, but I can do the low mileage because I'll make up for it with, say, quality workouts consisting of, say, sprints, intervals, and hill repeats, and I feel that way it makes me a better racer.
I usually go by hours and try to train about 3 to 6 hours a day, and you probably average maybe 18 miles an hour. Well, it must come out to be about 500 to 600 miles a week.
There's an old saying, piles of miles is the secret of big league road racing. This is primarily a cardiovascular endurance sport, and it develops healthy heart, lungs, and blood transport systems. Getting the best out of yourself on a bicycle is an art, and the people who understand this art are the ones who do it best, the riders and coaches who win the big races.
Speed work helps after a rider has obtained their base miles. Riders generally prefer to sharpen up in competition, hence the saying that racing is the best training. In racing, you get the miles plus all kinds of intervals created by the ebb and flow of the race. Mileage is relative. While some outstanding racers have always had a natural capacity to absorb many miles, it's important for beginners to work up gradually.
When I first turned pro, it was a big jolt. I've been averaging under 300 miles a week, which was okay for criterium racing, but I wasn't prepared for the big leagues in Europe. I had to double my miles, and my body had to play catch-up. Suddenly, I was eating huge amounts of strange food, and my body was going through a new set of changes. Eventually, I figured it out. As a pro, you're expected to know what works for you, or find out quick by getting dropped. This taught me an important lesson. You must pay attention and know your body, know the signs. No one but you is inside your body.
Pulse rate is the classic indicator of health and fitness, and cycling is no exception. Try taking your pulse every morning when you wake up before rising, then stand up and take it again for 60 seconds. The less the difference between these times, the more fit you are. Also, your resting pulse will drop if you're in good shape. keep records of pulse and all workouts on and off the bike.
The important thing about training is that you have to suffer, because you have to know what your body can do when it goes through that kind of pain. And if it's going to be a new feeling for you in the middle of a race, or even if it's just a touring ride, it's going to hurt a lot more than if you've been accustomed to it all along through your training ride.
Bike racers have recently become acutely aware of the benefits of weight training.
When I first got serious about cycling, I found that I really lacked upper body strength. In the off-season, I concentrate on upper body development using free weights and Nautilus.
Running, cross-country skiing, and speed skating provide excellent winter training.
Don't let the cold weather keep you from riding. Just be prepared. Wear clothes that breathe and break the wind and can be easily taken off when the weather changes. Wearing a hat will also keep you warm. After climbing a large hill, put on a plastic jacket or put a newspaper under your jersey to keep you warm on the downhill.
When riding outdoors is really impossible, rollers and wind trainers can be very useful. The fitness levels achieved by triathletes are testimony to the benefits of multi-sport training.
Most of the riders on the 7-Eleven team do some type of interval training.
They're tough, and anyone who says they enjoy them is a little bit crazy, but they're the one surefire way to get into peak cycling performance. First, you need to find a familiar section of road that will allow you to do your workouts without any interruptions like stoplights or intersections. Secondly, have a planned workout with the intervals ranging in time from 1 minute for beginning riders up to 5 minutes for competitive racers. The important thing to remember when doing intervals is that the efforts for each interval should range from 75% to 90% of your maximum, and the rest in between intervals should be short, say 15 seconds up to 2 minutes. By the end of the workout, you should be dead tired. Above all, don't forget to warm up well and go for a nice, easy ride after.
Reaching one's anaerobic threshold, the pulse rate where one can no longer sustain aerobic activity and starts to go into oxygen debt, is used by some top professionals. This is very grueling training and only for ambitious, experienced athletes. Robot-like training where you crank out miles on a formula is not the way to go. It's more natural and less boring to mix up periods of hard effort with more relaxed periods based on how you feel and what your goals are. This goes for both your day-to-day workouts and your overall training pattern.
Speed work is important. The classic professional approach is a well-kept secret: motor pacing. Motor pacing is not for beginners. Speeds are high, around or above 30 miles per hour. Don't even think about doing this with anyone who hasn't got real racing experience. Use a small motorcycle and wear a hard helmet. If you doubt your bike handling, forget it. But it's the one thing that can bring you up to race speed in the absence of good competition. You can do long, medium tempo rides or shorter, harder ones, or mix them up. But be careful. Too much motor pacing can and will burn you out. Motor pacing is also illegal on most highways, so check with your local authorities, unless you have a really good sprint.
The modern trend in cycling nutrition is toward what could loosely be called the health food diet. Long on grains, fresh vegetables, fruits, chicken, and fish, with few fats, little red meat, and no fried foods. In combination, they provide a low cholesterol diet that runs clean. Serious riders usually add at least a multivitamin plus additional C, B6, B12, and iron. A healthy breakfast is important for any rider scheduled for a morning ride. Poached eggs are better than fried. Stay away from fatty meats and oils. Warm cereals are a favorite among cyclists. Whole grain breads are preferred over white. Fresh fruits are an important part of an athlete's diet. Bananas, melons, grapes, apples, and other moist fruits are great sources of food energy. Juices will help provide your body with additional vitamins and minerals that it needs when working hard. It's best to stay to easily digested foods unless you're able to eat 3 hours or more before riding.
There's a big difference between what we feed our racers on their bikes and off their bikes. The night before a big race, we'll see that they eat a big meal that allows them to store energy for the next day's race. Whereas when they're on their bikes, we feed them foods that are easily digestible. Fruits are very popular. They contain both natural sugar and liquid. The idea is to eat moist foods that taste good, give energy, and are easily consumed. Here's what happens before the race. What goes into that musette bag can make or break a rider's day. This can be a tricky and dangerous part of the race. Suddenly, everyone wants to be in the same place at once. Practicing this pickup is not a waste of time. Getting your feet is critical because running out of food energy is like a car running out of gas. You want to drink frequently to avoid dehydration. During summer, the general rule is 1 bottle per hour. Learn to drink without losing control and don't drink a lot. Water can pool in your stomach and cause problems.
You ever wonder why cyclists shave their legs? It's a common misconception that it's done for aerodynamic purposes. Actually, it's done because it's a little bit easier to tape up those wounds that you run into when you fall down. Also, it's easier to clean up that road grime after riding in the rain. And finally, when you get a massage every day, having hairy legs can lead to a lot of irritation. So break out those Bics.
Jeff Pierce wearing the red leader's jersey, one of the greatest climbers in the world. He's making them suffer. This is the true test for everyone, the hardest stage in the race. And it's Jeff Pierce making his move, pushing away from the pack. Once again, Pierce is trying to become the king of the mountain, leading everyone up the hill to the finish of the mountain sprint. One of the premier climbers is Pierce.
Anyone who's ever ridden a bike more than a few miles knows about hills. Climbing ace Jeff Pierce knows a lot about them.
In the mountains, a lot of riders think it's either a case of you have it or you don't. That's not really true. Climbing is a skill that can be learned, and by applying a few basic techniques, you can greatly improve your performance here and even find yourself enjoying the time you spend going uphill. These riders are a good example of different climbing styles. The rider in front is what's known as a spinner, but this rider is in a larger gear and likes to get out of the saddle. This leads to a point we can't overlook. There is no one way to climb. There have been legendary mountain specialists who climbed in pretty big gears and others that would just spin low gears forever. Some rock their bikes from side to side and others are smooth. Some like to stay in the saddle and others stand for long periods. For all riders, there are some basic rules to observe. 1, shift to the right gear quickly. 2, pedal smoothly at a good cadence. 3, adapt a relaxed position that opens your chest and lets you breathe freely. 4, be mentally prepared for the challenge.
Climbing technique makes the difference between struggle and triumph. You can't improve your climbing unless you train hard. That applies to all cycling training. To improve any aspect of your riding, you have to work at it.
I find it helps to concentrate on being as relaxed as possible, especially my upper body. I save my arms for times when I really need to go hard. It's your legs, not your arms, that get you up the hill. Using arm muscles steals oxygen that could be used by your legs.
When climbing, your position on the bike becomes more upright. You're not worried about wind resistance, but about breathing freely. Find a climbing position that really lets you open your lungs.
How you hold the bars really matters. Most commonly, they're held like this for a sitting position. Or this. Holding the hoods gives you more power by getting your arms into the action. This is helpful for short climbs, but on a long climb, it will fatigue you early. Cadence, your pedaling RPM, should be a little slower when you're climbing. The right cadence will have a good rhythm, one that you can sustain.
Good cadence comes from being in the right gear. See what gears the better riders are using, but don't expect to match them. Experiment on solo rides. Try different gears. For medium hard hill, use your small ring and begin with the middle cog on your gear cluster. Shift down if you can't handle the gear. If you train often on the same hill, it gives you some perspective on how you're doing. Time yourself occasionally.
This rider is wasting energy all over the place. He's too concerned about strength and aggressiveness. Jill may not have his muscle strength, but she's smoother, her shoulders are more relaxed, and she uses her gears properly. She's concentrating, doing it right.
Because I, like most women, have less muscle mass than men, I prefer to climb in smaller gears. That is, to spin at a higher RPM.
Hill intervals are a way to improve your climbing performance after your technique is together and you have some miles in your legs. First, find a long, steady grade. Then choose a length of time for your interval. 4 to 5 minutes may be good for a beginner, where 12 minutes would be proper for a racer in top condition. Start off with a hard pace, but one you can sustain for the entire length of the interval. Towards the end, you should be putting forth maximum effort. When the interval is over, shift down and spin a bit. When your legs start to feel better, turn around, go downhill, and do it again. When all these techniques are working together, you'll find there is an almost hypnotic groove that allows you to use your resources fully. The expert rider finds this groove routinely.
Senior National Road Championship, number 1 here, winning them all in 83, Ron Keeple.
10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
The man who has a reputation for winning prolonged time trials.
Contre la montre, the race of truth. It's an essential skill for any serious road racer because all stage races include a time trial, and the race is often decided upon its result.
Riding against a clock is about the most painful thing in cycling. The rider is racing not only the clock, but the buildup of lactic acid in his muscles. He has to gauge that against his speed all the way to the finish.
It is very good for beginners who aren't yet willing to test their bike handling skills in the wheel-to-wheel action of a mass start race. The cycling leg of a triathlon race, sometimes over 100 miles in the hot sun, is another type of time trial. A team time trial is when riders work together using techniques covered earlier in the drafting section of this program. The prodigiously difficult Race Across America, also a time trial, is like no other in the world, over 3,000 miles against the clock.
Number 57 is underway at the line now, number 9.
Here's Inga Benedict at the start of a time trial. She's warmed up well beforehand, and she's got a good, smooth start. You can see from the way she's pedaling that she's in a big gear, but not too big. Her pedal RPMs settle between 80 and 90, a timely shift, right when her RPM started to get too high. Smooth pedaling, and she finishes off with a good sprint across the line. Anyone into cycling can benefit from a weekly time trial. It builds strength, varies your training, and gives you a clear measure of progress. Members of the 7-Eleven team will often use so-called funny bikes at their time trial events. These bikes are super high-tech, using carbon fiber disc wheels, aerodynamic frames, and space-age materials, all designed to cut through the wind in the most efficient manner. Your first time trials can be done without any changes to your bike. Eventually, you could add light wheels and tires. Disc wheels can get very tricky in crosswinds and are not for beginners. A cyclometer that tells speed, distance, and time elapsed is useful for time trialing. Unless it's a hill climb, use straight block gearing. 7-Eleven coach Jim Akowitz, a time trial specialist in his own right, has some helpful suggestions for doing your own time trial.
Find a fairly flat section of road at least 10 miles in length. Start off with a small section not more than 2 miles long, at least for the first couple of tries or so. Don't kill yourself with a longer distance. Remember, this is a measure of your progress. Time this run and keep a record of it. If you're an advanced rider, add 2 miles a week to this run. For women, add 1 mile and beginners half a mile. At the end of 5 weeks, you will have worked yourself up to a reasonable training distance. Remember, it is definitely better to ride well for a few miles than to struggle through the last half of a distance you can't yet handle. Start off in a medium-high gear. Beginners can start in about a 52, 19, or 18. Strong riders can use slightly higher gears. Don't go super hard from the start. Just try to get settled on the bike for the first 300 meters. Then go up through the gears. If you feel you're bogged down, shift to the next lowest gear. The trick is not to max out too early. If you go out too fast, you get lactic acid buildup and it stays with you all the way.
As you get more serious about competitive cycling, nothing is better than a time trial as your first event. It gives you a chance to gauge your skill and fitness against that of other riders. No matter what the outcome, you will have learned something about yourself and the way you ride, and had some fun along the way. The daily massage is the most relaxing and pleasurable part of a racer's otherwise grueling routine.
These are some of the techniques that I recommend to the 7-Eleven riders for self-massage. One of the first things you can do to relax is put your legs up. And this just helps the circulation move out of the legs. And do this for about 5 minutes or so, maybe while you're watching TV, and just rest your legs up. This moves the circulation along and helps it come out of the legs and back up into the heart. Then bring your legs back down, and you can use a lubrication if you want, a nice light oil or even just lotion, and start a kneading motion. Knead the muscles to relax the muscles and increase the circulation. We want to move the waste that you've built up after the muscles action back out of the legs, out of the legs. So just knead nice and deep, just like you're kneading bread or dough, and just bring that along. The next technique is called stripping. Strip the legs with your fingers. This stretches the muscles. Or use your thumbs and press as deep as you like, and just bring everything out of the legs and toward the heart. Also do your feet, because your feet work very hard during a ride, and just knead them along, wiggle your toes, that feels great. And the last technique is tapping, or tapotomy. Tap the muscles, shake the muscles like this, slap them a little bit, but tap is just fine like this. These massage techniques will help speed recovery time after a hard ride, and will make your ride the next time feel better because your legs will be clean and relaxed.
As we're nearing the finish of this 4 states U.S. Pro Championship, it's down to the 2 Danes and the 7-Eleven team members, Eric Heiden and Tom Schuler. And it's Heiden making a break to the inside. His sprint is opening a big lead. The crowd is really behind him. His powerful legs driving to the line. Heiden with great sprinting ability, stretching it out. And Eric Heiden will be crowned the 1985 U.S. Pro Champion. Eric Heiden with the biggest win of his bike racing career.
Everyone should learn to sprint, even pure time trialers like triathletes, because it teaches you things about the bike and yourself that can't be learned otherwise. I was physically strong when I entered the sport of cycling, but it wasn't until I really worked at it that I got this kind of speed and timing. Hitting the 100% threshold in an occasional sprint really punctuates a ride and opens you up a bit physically and mentally. When you get used to the idea of doing it, you are a little bit tougher bike rider. This is a very basic technique. In effect, the rider is doing very short intervals, somewhere around 15 to 20 seconds with a good rest in between. The idea is to find a gear that has enough resistance that you can jump out of the saddle, but not so big that you strain anything. The goal is to reach maximum RPM and to spin out. Aim for making the whole sprint process flow into a single effort. Be smooth. You may find sprinting against your friends to be some of the best fun you can have on a bike. Set predetermined finish lines along your regular route, then play the game. Draft off each other. Really work to win. Remember that the second rider is protected from the wind until he jumps. This is the classic technique for the pure sprinter. Staying out of the wind, going at the last moment, and winning by the width of a tire. When you're sprinting, you want to get your whole body involved. You want to pull hard on those handlebars in the initial acceleration. You want to get up out of the saddle so that you can push down on those pedals with everything you've got. Also, you want to think about pulling up on the pedals. Finally, when you've reached top speed, you want to settle back into your seat and try to make your body as aerodynamically sound as possible, something like this. If you're not having much luck winning sprints, try attacking at different times. Experimenting will reveal your best moves. You may find that a surprise attack is often a very potent weapon. The rider that goes for it early usually feels that while his sprint is not super fast, he can sustain it for a longer period of time. Timing is everything. If the other riders hesitate, they lose the chance to get in your slipstream. So try to incorporate some sprinting into your rides. Whether the entire workout involves sprints or you're just racing for that next city limit sign, go for it. You might find a hidden talent.
Cycling is a very diverse sport, the techniques for which are many and varied. We hope you enjoyed the program, but more importantly, that you apply the techniques and advice of the 7-Eleven team to your riding. So remember, confidence and control can be learned. You must work at your position and bike fit. Nutrition is an all-important consideration. When climbing, stay relaxed. Time trials are the perfect first event. and everyone should learn how to sprint. So hammer it out. Maybe you can be a champion.
Hammer it out. Be a champion. Hammer it out. Leaning on the bend, picking up the pail and the thrill of the chase. Whoa, whoa. Power at the peak, a solitary stare, the most prominent player. Whoa, whoa. Gonna jump, hit, push it to the rim and finish line dead ahead. Stretching out the gap, yeah. Hammer it out, be a champion. Hammer it out. Hammer it out, be a champion. Hammer it out. Hammer it out.
Tropicana, makers of America's highest quality juices and juice beverages, is proud to be a sponsor of Cycling for Success. The 7-Eleven clothing you've seen in this program is available for purchase. Here's how you can get a free catalog and find out more about the 7-Eleven Cycling Club.